Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you all had a great trading week and I hope you're ready for yet another busy week in the markets. Last week was a bit volatile, but a lot of the names in our watch list did do fairly well and or upheld for the most part with the analysis that we kind of had in place for them. Um, just a reminder, if you'd like to receive my watch list a day in advance so you can use it as a form of homework to prep and create your own analysis before my video gets released, so you can compare your results with mine, make sure you give me a follow on X at AB Trades. Don't forget, my checklist market guide infographic is also on there. And the purpose of that guide is so you can see all the confluences that matter to me. And the more you can create or identify when you're charting of set confluences, the better the outcome. Remember, none of this is financial advice. This is just me sharing how I'm approaching the market, and hopefully, it gives you a new light in how I trade. So, let's just go ahead and dive right into it for this week. First off, I want to cover some sectors here and sectors of of like importance and that I've kind of identified some really nice strength. To start off is XLRE, and this is just a very basic market structure approach here, but I love the development that happened within the 4 hour, right? You have a set of lows that comes down, and then you have exhaustive lows that don't sweep, and then you aggressively push and displace into new highs that kind of counter a lot of this LRLR here. And you clean that up and you run through the daily supply high, which was here, right? Creating that initial structural shift because you go from external high to low that then changes, right? You did push into this slight bearish PD array, but now like you have supportive confluences because you did clean up a lot of this move, and now you have really nice absorption based development here against your golden pocket of this overall swing low to swing high point, right? We know when this expansion occurs against previous highs that change the narrative and you get that staircase compression, as long as we stay above 40, 42, I do think XLRE can start making a move back up into those previous week highs, right? So this has really good buildup, and we'll cover a name of relevance to this. I'm just kind of going through. Another one is XLF, and I really like this because similar to XLRE, we are starting to show some potential reversals. Now that doesn't mean we're out of the like caution zone because we can still, relative to this gap down, we can still reject and sweep those monthly lows before a real reversal. So I am keeping an eye on XLF in terms of if we start to push back above 54, or do we take a monthly sweep that then hammers out and then we go. But I do think XLF is starting to get ready for some reversals here in the next week or so. XLP right out the gate, if I show you this weekly, really nice weekly manipulation that then changes from a similar to the other one, right? You have this, this, and a lot of the people know that when I talk about inverse head and shoulders at the bottom of the broadening, if I zoom into the daily, you can see it a little bit cleaner right here. When you have those inverse head and shoulders at the bottom of the broadening, a lot of the times that's when you can identify that overall structural change that then leads to your buy side of the curve. Because that's how you identify this initial first higher low here, right? If I come in and bring this, look at how clean that is, and now you're expanding through, and you literally went outside month, and by the looks of it, XLP really wants to break out here, right? You kind of close near that high, and a lot of times when you've pushed into that trend, the next week does reject. So it's going to be a very important, I guess, next 2 weeks for XLP, because if this does break out, I would put this at 85, 87 based off of this weekly deviation, right? The manipulation leg against the higher low, but it looks really, really good. So keep an eye on some of your staples. Another one on short watch is XLB, and we'll cover that here as we get started. So first up on the list is HD, and I do like the fact that HD had this like internal buildup. You know how I talk about that staircase analogy, right? It works both ways. So you have this really nice absorption of price with no clean follow through. And when I talk about clean follow through, I'm trying to address those displacement candles, the candles that aggressively push into those highs. You see how this is just compact? This is a form for me of engineered liquidity that eventually breaks out the opposing weight. So really nice sweep of those weekly lows that now hammered back. So we have a potential 2-2 rev here against our previous month high breaker, also lining up with our overall discount of this potential shift here. So I am going to be watching HD. If this doesn't materialize in a 2-2 rev that gives you follow through back up into like 387, I'm looking for a discount in between the 357, 364 areas if this doesn't do it here. But you do have a nice little 4-hour broadening as well, right? So like my initial lean based off of the 4-hour and the daily would be maybe you get a run back up into like 380, 381. So maybe you do something like this, reject, maybe come lower, and then eventually trade back up. Or scenario two would be you just immediately take advantage of this really nice daily. And I do like the fact that that weekly swept and came back into the range. So to me, we could kind of be in a build zone for a bit until earnings, but I do like the idea of an ER run up. Low is the same development, literally the same analysis, just a little bit stronger. Next up on the list is COP, and this one's a pretty basic trade here. We have this kind of supply high where COP could not trade above for an entire month, right? And just recently, 2 days ago, COP finally gapped above this monthly supply range and kind of came back to test it. And you'll hear me say a lot of the times throughout these watchlist videos that gap ups tend to support buyers, gap downs tend to support sellers. So in this scenario here, with this 4-hour retest against a very nice month-long supply, we accelerated through it with a gap up. And now that gap up got turned into a nice SR flip, and we just threatened a really nice 4-hour and a daily rev. So I would like to see kind of this weekly expansion continue to utilize that little monthly SR flip, maybe base above, but I would eventually like to see COP trade up into like 108, 110 areas to fill the gap. Really a clean 4-hour setup here. I wouldn't mind if it consolidates a little bit more, but I also wouldn't be surprised if this just gaps up through those previous day highs. Next up on the list, based off of what we covered just now, is still on my watch list, AMT. And similar to the last video, right? Anything between this 175 and like 173 to me looks like a nice area to kind of build on sweeps. And you got a really nice undercut of your last 3-4 sessions and pretty much hammered back up into that range. So to me, I can only assume that based off of this development, right? Lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, higher high. Now you're getting some kind of really clean accumulation here. And as long as there's no weekly close under 173, I believe this accumulation is preparing for a run up into that 185 mark. Really clean Wyckoff here against your manipulations lows from that monthly. And then look at that clean expansion, market structure shift. And now you're using that initial breaker paired with your golden pocket and the PD array. Like there's just so many confluences, right? You have your MSS, your breaker, broadening inversion, manipulation, you have your spring, you have your daily 200 MA. I mean, wicking back up into the range, a nice sell side raid that pretty much reclaimed. Give me 1 second. Like there's just so many confluences. If you pull out my checklist and go through it, you will be able to mark out a lot. And this one, the risk is against 173, and I would like to see this attack that range highs for this new buy side of the curve, which kind of lines up with our XLRE notes from the morning, or from the, not the morning, from the opening segment of this video. Next up on the list is JPM, and this is on the 4-hour. So one thing I will point out, because XLF is not fully convincing me yet, But what I do like about JPM 4-hour is we have a really nice 3-1 setup. So the previous candle basically swept both sides. And then the next one came in and held inside. So not only did we take out both highs and lows, but now we're compressing after the raid on both those buy stops and sell stops. And relative to XLF's daily chart, this one has some potential here because you have a gap down that pushes you into those new monthly lows and you kind of get some nice consolidation. But then look, you gap up against the gap down. So I have to kind of annotate this as an inversion. And excuse me, oh, man, my throat's just drying up right now. So now we have a really clean 3-1 against a inversion from a monthly low sweep. So I have to go against this 4-hour, and as long as JPM stays above 300, I have to kind of assume we start to attack the -2 and -2.5, which puts you up into a previous week high and a gap attempt. And it lines up with the confluences on XLF. Whether or not this sees a new low or not, again, similar to what XLF is looking on the daily, I do think some potential reversals are in store for this. Next up on the list is Walmart. This one's a really clean chart, and it kind of goes through these similar cycles where you kind of absorb price, get some kind of sell side raid, and then expand. Similar scenario, again, this nice absorption, you get that sell side raid into a supportive gap, which is also discount, and then you get the expansion. So if everything kind of plays out similar here on Walmart, I would like to see this attack 120, 121, and maybe even 124 pre-ER. Really nice LRLR. Overall order flow is still pointing up. I really like the utilization of this breaker paired with a gap and your overall discount of this range here. And now you have that displacement through that little gap down where price could not break since Tuesday. And now you're getting that 2-2 continuation with displacement. And you're putting in a nice weekly rev as well. So really good confluences on this, and I would like to see follow through. Maybe some kind of wick back to retest 117, 118 if you missed your entry. But overall, I would like to see that development into those new highs. Really, really pretty chart and kind of lines up with that XLP as well. Another chart is PG, and this one is just phenomenal. I mean, I posted my comparison, what was it, earlier this week when I covered the PG breakdown with Costco. So if you want to go back and review the notes that I had on PG, I highly recommend you go and give that video a watch. You will learn a lot in terms of how you use time frame alignment and pattern recognition to kind of understand how price has memory, right? Price has memory in terms of how it moves, and if you can find those similar patterns, yeah, I mean, regardless of what sector industry it is, they don't have to match at all. What matters is price movement. And if it did it once, did it twice, it should do it a third time potentially. So I highly recommend you go and watch that. This is just really, really clean, higher time frame structure coming off of a really, really nice, like super high time frame OB off of a monthly sell side raid, followed with displacement. And like when I go in and maybe like show the 3-day, like you can even see what it's trying to do here, right? You have your total soup and then it kind of expands out, and like I really don't know how PG at minimum doesn't run into that 157, 159 zone. Like it just looks so clean to do that. Next up on the list, and this one's more of like a short-term trade here, and this one is Campbell's soup actually. And what I like about this one is, oops, why is this not deleting? Is this weekly here, right? We have a nice inside fail 2-2, and that 2 is with aggression. So now we have a reference point here on this weekly, and we have supportive PD arrays to continue to push price up into at least 29.30 would be kind of my guess here. And I would really, really like to see maybe some kind of retest of previous month lows or like consolidate, but I do think this trades up into 29.30 pre-ER. And it's just really pretty daily, really pretty higher time frames, weekly, monthly, all that stuff. Look at the monthly that's setting up, right? Really nice monthly hammer here that I would like to see develop back up into that inefficiency there. And if I go into the quarter, same thing, right? You're basically at a really nice higher time frame demand zone, and you're putting in a nice reversal candle here that is trying to reclaim those previous day highs. And you have a weekly reference point. So if we can get some kind of dip that retests like maybe mid 27s, I would like to see this run up into that 29 early this week, maybe in the next 2 weeks. Really, really nice chart. Next on the list is ROST. And this one's based off of the 4-hour here. Overall, this one's just a simple trend continuation. And we are addressing the nice higher low with the breaker. Really nice sweep of those internals. And we pretty much reclaimed those previous week lows. So we have a nice weekly rev. And this kind of lately has been going through those cycles of 3 weeks of retracement before returning back up into its original expansion. 3 weeks of retracement. So does this give you that next expansion leg headed into ER? So maybe some 320, 200 calls could work here. I'm not entirely sure if you want to go for a swing or try and get some short-term exposure. But then when you go into the 4-hour, you can also see how this is trying to develop, right? Look. And if it does that, you buy that retracement that then changes the cycle, which is kind of what I would lean for this actually. You go from the failed highs off of those 52-week highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, but now you're trying to expand back up to take those highs. And if that happens, I would anticipate some kind of higher low that then develops into a internal to external MMBM. Basically looking for buy stops. So all those previous highs. But this has a really nice look to it. And I like the delivery out of discount, which is what I like to see. So I would like to see follow through into like 191, 192, maybe a retracement, and then expand into new all-time highs. And finally on the list is KSS. And oops. And whoops. Sorry about that. And similar to ROST, this is just another discount trade with supportive confluences. You have your earnings catalyst that's finally getting cleaned up. You're coming into deep discount. So like this is where the best risk reward can happen relative to that gap. It's like a $2 risk for a, 4, 5, 6 plus. If this does work, right? And you have really clean buildup. And now what we need to see is, can these lows hold, and do you get a 2 to reversal to at least target the gap? So you could pair this. You can pair this with some short-term risk and maybe some long-term risk that covers earnings. You could maybe do like 2 weeks out, 18 calls, and then maybe some 320s, 20 calls. See if this overall discount works. But again, this is just very similar to ROST. And as you can see for this week, we kind of stuck to the sectors that had strength. And so I would just kind of keep and watch on those. And then another little potential shout is Google. And the only reason I bring up Google is because we still haven't expanded up into the -3, -4 of the overall leg. And I think as long as Google can stay above those 323, 225s, I do believe this can give you a nice push into the 355. You do have earnings coming up, so it would be more of like an earnings lotto, but definitely keep an eye on this. Also, another notable name that I've been tracking is GLXY. You are coming back into that discount after filling in a nice gap paired with a breaker and your 200. So this has a lot of confluences headed into earnings. I did buy some shares, and if it works, we should see GLXY push back up into like 38 plus. And if it fails, my invalidation would be 25. So it's a $3 risk for a $10 reward. Really clean structure to it, so I think it's worth a shot. And yeah, that pretty much concludes our watch list. Pretty short video this week. I wanted to keep this a lot more like higher conviction week just because of the volatility that's kind of occurring right now, and I don't want to get sidelined or bombarded with information overload. I kind of want to keep a pretty condensed list of the names that I think can do really well. So once again, those sectors are XLRE, XLF, XLP, and XLB, and then maybe some XLC because XLC did have some. Excuse me, XLC did have some like overall underlying strength relative to the market. So yeah, guys, hopefully this helps. This is a little bit shorter than usual, so hopefully it's an easier watch and you guys can kind of address those names as you'd like and maybe figure out how you want to trade them in terms of option contracts or shares. As always, all I ask is for your support by subscribing, liking, commenting. Any feedback is recommended and welcomed. And my goal is to get this channel to about 5,000 subscribers. Hopefully by summer or end of year. I would like to do it sooner rather than later, and then I can start releasing my educational series. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing me say that, but just hit that subscribe button. I would really, really appreciate it. So tell all your friends and family about me, and I will see you guys all next week. See ya.